who that is.
Oh, my God.
There he is.
Morning, man.
How are you?
I'm good. How
Good
about
to
you?
see you,
Looking
Joe.
good?
Nice to see you.
For sure. I already know.
What's up,
My
buddy?
guy.
How are you?
What up, brother?
Good to see you. How
How
are
you
you?
doing, brother?
Yeah, good.
Awesome to
Great
meet
to
you,
see you.
man.
Nice
Yes,
to meet
sir.
you. Man, this is better than my podcast I had for, we had nothing. Our production quality was a little low. This is, it's like a 19 camera shoot. Now, Scorsese doesn't shoot
Well,
like
also,
that.
too, though, the difference is you're a Hall of Famer.
Uh-huh.
We are not, and so we need people to make us look good.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say the Hall of Famer. I do not consider myself a Hall of Famer. I got an award from the Hall of Fame. And when Fox announced that, I got a text from Marcus Allen, who's one of the greatest guys of all time. He's like, welcome, man. So great to have you in the Hall of Fame. And I just went, Marcus, ... You're in the Hall of Fame. I got an award. There's a big difference between you and me. So we're not in the same category. You earned your way in. I kind of outlasted people, and I don't even know what the hell I did to get in the Hall of Fame, but I got an award from the Hall of Fame, yes.
Hold up, limitless, take a stomach, got pin in it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling got me up. On the mission got me up. Knowing me, I got the key. Only vision I can trust. Limitless, take a stomach, got pin in it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant.
Well, that voice and that face is Joe Buck. Welcome to The Pivot. This is Fred Taylor and Ryan Clark, Channing Crowder. Pivot fam, thank you for pivoting with us. Joe, you actually have something in common with somebody else here. You guys like pissing in things other than urinals.
Joe's a pisser?
Joe's Joe.
Come on.
Joe, I mean, it was early.
I'm more interested in his story, but go ahead.
So every travel trip, right, we'll be driving, like we have a training camp tour. And so if the places are close, we'll drive from one training camp to the other. And sure enough, 30 minutes into every car ride, you just hear it in the back, like, and you know it's not somebody drinking anything. It's him pissing in a water bottle.
Wow. In the actual, like a...
It's worse, though. We stop at a convenience store. He buys a gallon water simply to pour it completely out so it can be his pisser.
There's got to be something invented for you. Come on. We don't need to pour out the water to then fill it up with
I can't
urine.
drink the gallon. I can't drink the whole gallon, but I don't want to inconvenience people.
So what he's referencing is, it was early in my career. It was the last game that the Packers every year used to play a game in Milwaukee at County Stadium where the Brewers used to play. Hard to believe the Packers now, with all the success and everything, would give up a home game and let it go to Milwaukee, but they did. And in Old County Stadium, I'm doing the football game. It's the Packers against the Falcons. I'm doing it with Tim Green, a former Falcon, and same kind of thing. I've been drinking water the entire morning, and the half will not end. And the bathroom is nowhere near the booth at all, not close. You had to go over like a catwalk and down a staircase and around a thing, and I kept going, well, when is a commercial? They're like, we're out of commercials for the half. I'm like, we're out of commercials, like 6 minutes left in the second quarter. I'm waiting. Finally, we get to the 2-minute warning. They're like, if you can go, but you got to be back in a minute. I was like, I can't make it down there, do what I got to do, and come back here. And so I get everybody out of the booth. I'm wearing a parka. And I say to the guy, I have to go to the bathroom. I have to pee. So he hands me like a little water bottle like you'd get like next to your bed. I'm like, are you kidding me? First of all, I can't aim like that. Secondly, it's going to be overflowing. So I end up, there's a plastic bag in the trash can. I can't go. I get stage fright. So because I'm like, my God, we got 30 seconds and I got to go, and it's going to take, this is a 2-minute pee, it felt like. And so I'm waiting. Finally, boom, I start going. They're like, we're coming back in 5, 4, 3. First play, I think it was Sterling Sharp, caught a touchdown from Favre, and I called the touchdown while continuing to pee in a trash can.
That's a professional.
I mean, you never let them see you sweat. Yeah, that is my one and only. That's why every time we go to a stadium, new or old, I'm like, where's the bathroom? because it's all I do. Like I drink coffee all morning, then it's water all afternoon and evening. And by the time I get halfway through a game, I'm just constantly going to the bathroom. So yeah, if there's a booth, they're like, what stadium do you like to call games in? I'm like, how close is the bathroom to where I'm sitting? Those are the ones I like.
Hey man, they didn't make no changes for you, Joe. I mean, you've been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
Like
no.
at some
For
point,
my
it has to be a
tiny
Joe
bladder.
Buckaroo.
Yeah, no, right. Yeah, for my tiny bladder, they have not somehow made construction changes and architectural changes to booths for me to pee.
That's his thing. You heard he say just got a tiny bladder.
Yeah, tiny bladder, large urethra. That's what he goes.
See, I've never gone to the next step. I know the tiny bladder part, the urethra. I'll take your word for it.
That sounds very much like an athlete. Like you hear about it, peeing on the sideline. You heard the Larry Izzo stories where he went further than peeing on the sideline and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do people respect what you do? Because some people be like, he's getting awards. He's talking about football.
I've got the best job in the world. And I mean, I tried to played high school football. I broke my neck, literally. Tried to pitch in college in Indiana. I was not a great athlete by any stretch. And I get to walk in tonight. I get to walk in, best seat in the house, call the game on Monday Night Football, called a bunch of Super Bowls, called a bunch of World Series. I think most people believe, and I probably would too, if I wasn't involved, that we just kind of show up and call the game. But there is a lot of work involved. I think there's a lot of pressure. It feels like there's more pressure now on what we do and what I do than I've ever felt before. I feel like the microscope is a little more fine. The spotlight is a little brighter. I'm not crying about it, but I do feel like, you got to kind of put up with the criticism and the people who say you suck and the people that, especially in baseball, when I'd walk into a stadium for a World Series and I got fans yelling at me and throwing shit at me and people down in front of the booth popping their head up and going, you hate the Astros. I'm like, I don't hate the Astros. Or you hate the Red Sox. You hate if I had a dime for every time I heard the you hate my team, you hate the blank, yeah, I wouldn't be doing Monday Night Football. I'd be doing a lot better than that. It's crazy the way people hear what we say and kind of put it through their own filter and believe that we then are against them somehow. I can honestly sit here and say I've never, ever thought in the booth, man, I'd love to see Team X beat Team Y. I just don't care. I want to see a good game. I want to see a long series in baseball. I want to see a 42-41 game tonight, and whoever wins, wins. I don't have a rooting interest, but the fans do, and they want to hear the person calling the game doing it kind of from their side. And when you get excited for the other, it pisses them off. And I get it, but yeah, I mean, you gotta do the work, prepare, and then just kind of dodge after you do the game and hope that they ask you to come back and do another week's worth of games.
Well, in this current environment with all the different sports books and betting platforms, the fans become the bigger conspiracy theorists, and anything can set them off, especially the commentator.
Totally, you're right. And people they're emotionally invested and they're financially invested in a lot of cases. And I think when you combine those two things,
you can piss somebody off.
You are. 100%. I mean, if you, and I totally get it. And the one sport I'm able to root for that I'm a fan of is hockey, and I'm a Blues fan. And when the Blues won the Stanley Cup 6 years ago, I was watching the finals. They were playing Boston, and the guy doing the finals is Doc Emmerich, a guy that's considered one of the greatest to ever do it. Before that, it was Kenny Albert, two guys that I have the utmost respect for and consider friends. And I'm sitting there watching it the same way people were watching me, going, God, why do you care about the Boston Bruins? Are you kidding me? This should all be... Because you want to hear the familiar voice that you've been listening to all year, call it when you care the most. So you have to either put up with that or not do it. And I've got mouths to feed, and I will continue to do it until somebody tells me not to.
I wanted to add to that, though. Are you able to, so you're a St. Louis native, right? Since '99, when the Rams won the Super Bowl, probably the last real chance you got an opportunity to cheer for a football team?
That's
or
true.
Are you able to be a casual fan? of football?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the action more than I'm a fan of the team. You know what I mean? You bring up that Rams team, and a lot of those guys are, I would consider, really good friends. Kurt Warner's a good friend. Isaac Bruce is a great friend, not only to me, but was to my dad. You know, Torrey Holt is one of the great people I've ever met in sports. Ricky Prohl, you know, the guys that go on and on with that team. I went to that Super Bowl as a fan, and I just wanted to be there. It was like an ice storm in Atlanta, and we got there, and I got seats, bought seats, and went and was in the crowd and just enjoyed it as a fan. And I was proud of my city. You know, I'm very proud St. Louis guy. We've had 2 teams ripped out of St. Louis, the Cardinals and then the Rams, and it wasn't for lack of support or people, you know, didn't care. It was kind of the product kept getting taken down, and then eventually people get tired of paying money for a team that you don't feel like is meeting you halfway. And so they end up in LA, or before that, Arizona. But yeah, that's kind of the last time. And I think I learned that when I was a kid. My dad broadcast the Cardinals for 50 years. And I was around it as a little boy, and I was the biggest, I still am, a St. Louis baseball Cardinal fan. And when I was inside with my dad, I used to bat boy, I used to shag fly balls in the outfield. Ozzie Smith is one of our closest family friends. Guys took an interest in me because I was the announcer's kid, and I kind of knew how to act and wasn't like a little punk and, you know, getting in trouble down in the dugout and whatever. But it used to stun me that as a fan, I felt like I cared more than the players, because I would see the closer, whoever it was, Bruce Sutter, or after him, Lee Smith, give up a big game-ending home run, and then they'd get on the team charter plane, and boom, down goes the middle seat, out come the cards, here's the meal money, they're flinging it around, having a good time, laughing. I was like, I want to cry, my team just lost, and but that's how they have to do it. That's their job. And I think the fan thing, by the time I was 13 or 14, you get kind of inside and you realize these guys are doing something on a different level than fans even understand. And I understood that as a little boy, like being around them, like, yeah, you know, these guys can't exist. If Lee Smith gives up some big home run and goes back to bed and sucks his thumb and cries all night, he's probably not going to be good the next day. He's got to flush it and get ready for the next game. And I feel like as a broadcaster, having that mentality of, I don't care who wins, I want to see a good game, and I'll go do it again tomorrow.
You mentioned your father, and I know you dealt with the quote-unquote nepotism.
Totally.
Word, right? Starting at 21. You know, and I love your honesty about all of that. How much did that sort of affect you in the way you approached the job?
It's why I see a therapist, to be honest with you. I still, to this day, I'm 56 years old now, and I started with the Cardinals when I was 21. I've been doing it for a long time. I think it toughened me up a little bit in my little world. Not your kind of tough, but it toughened me up in my world and got me ready for criticism, because when I was 21, I got hit with the nepotism stuff in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. There's a radio TV critic, Dan Caesar, who was there then, he's there now. And I was reading an article in my hometown paper about how offensive it was that I was hired because I was just somebody's kid. And I'd done 2 years of the minor leagues and whatever, and I remember reading that and crying like a baby. And I was still living, I mean, perfectly with my mom and dad. I was waiting for an apartment to be, I was making like 50 grand. And I'm trying to get into this little crappy apartment. I'm still living at home. I'm reading this article. I'm crying about it because it was embarrassing. It was more embarrassing than it hurt my feelings. I was like, man, everybody's gonna read this and think I'm a clown. And so I was kind of hit with that stuff early. And I think it got me ready for, you better work your ass off and be good at what you do, because I think the jury is out when you walk in, and you got to prove to people that you're worthy of this spot, and you didn't just get it because you're somebody's kid. Did I get it because I was somebody's kid? 100%. Now, what do you do with it? And if you're willing to put the work in, and I think, you know, willing to love what you do, and it was when I went to the minor leagues, I know my dad told people, we're going to see if this kid really loves what he thinks he loves, because Then it was bus trips, and I was also the traveling secretary, and I'm handing meal money to Leon Durham and guys that had been in the big leagues, and now they were back at AAA. Terry Francona, who's a manager now for the Cincinnati Reds. I was 19 at the time, and I was leaving college, going to the summer, doing baseball, coming back, and he said, the minor leagues is a different story, and you got to put the hours in. It's not as glamorous as it is up here. And I couldn't get enough. I didn't want an off day. I couldn't wait to get to the ballpark and do the game. And so, A, I found I loved it as a young person. B, I got criticism, and I was like, well, you're going to deal with that. And then you get into social media and everything I've dealt with, doing the World Series for, 2.5 decades and whatever. It was a great training ground to see if I was in my own world, I'm not saying kind of tough enough to deal with all that crap and just when the game starts, go do my job. So yeah, I'm thankful all that happened, and I admit it 100%. That's why I wrote a book called Lucky Bastard. I'm lucky. I am a bastard. Yes, my dad did happen to meet my mom at an interesting time in his life, but we'll leave that for the next podcast.
Pops had a good life.
He did.
What did he tell you? Because we always hear about the recipient of the nepotism and that you're dealing with stuff from it. But your dad worked hard to have an ability to get to nepotize you.
I have been nepotized.
You've been nepotized, but
That's right.
We're successful people, and our kids honestly get things. And my kids are coming out of the younger kids out of us. And when they start getting that, what advice should I give them when they're like, "Oh, you're just doing that because your dad," and they come back and say, "They said that I just got this job because of you." What would be the advice to give to the nepotizer given to the nepotized?
It's a great question, and I don't think I've ever been asked that. And I say that because I don't know that he and I ever talked about that specific end of it. I know what I would tell my kids. Own it. Own it and outwork everybody around you, and that's all you can do. I've got 2 daughters that live in New York. Both are in the TV film industry. I've got 7-year-old boys. Yes, I said that. 29, 26, 7, and 7.
Big urethra.
Yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened. So, urethra aside, I do know that my daughters deal with it, and I do, in their own way. And I don't know what else to tell them other than you're going to have to be tough enough. And when somebody goes, "Well, I know how you got your job," the answer is, yeah, I did. And now do I have the talent to, whether it's acting and TV and film, whether it's directing, my other daughter, whether it's calling play-by-play and broadcasting the game. My dad's been dead for 23 years now. I think the nepotism stuff might have worn off by now. And so it's like I've been doing it at the network level for 30 plus years. I think eventually your talent has to speak for itself, and it doesn't matter how you started. I think everybody kind of uses whatever they can to get their foot in the door. I just wanted my kids, my older daughters, and eventually my sons, to get seen. And then it's up to the employer to go, "Yeah, they're really good. I'd love to hire them." Or, "Some, they're not good enough." Yeah. And I think that's kind of where the nepotism stuff, at least in the performance world, maybe if my dad was the CEO and I was in the corner office and in a different business where it almost didn't matter what the person did, I get judged every time I open my mouth. I get judged every time I do a game. If the judge and jury of my work said, "I don't care who his dad is, he sucks," I would have been gone. And I think in the performance world, whether it's athletically, whether it's talking for a living, acting, whatever it is, ultimately the employer, doesn't matter who your dad is, your mom is, you're either good enough or you're not. And it's a great question. I never talked to him about it. He was good in that he never pushed me into any of this stuff. I think he just let me witness how much he loved going to work every day, and whether he was a plumber or a lawyer or a doctor or a firefighter or whatever. I think when you see a dad, and he was an older dad, in his 60s, go down to the ballpark to do a Cardinal game at 3 o'clock when the game starts at 7, maybe he just wanted to get out of the house. But he got all of his joy out of going to work. And I think as a kid, and I was close to him, I think the next natural step is to go, man, that's kind of what I want to do. And so that was the great gift he gave me, to see his joy in going to work every day, because it led me to doing what I'm doing.
As dads, we're all dads. I think our main objective before we leave this earth is to leave an impact, on our children. Is there a certain lesson that you take with you that guides you to this day?
It's funny you talk to me at this time, because there's a movie coming out called Soul on Fire, and it's about a little boy who was 9 or 10, was playing with a gas can in his garage, and it blew up, and he was burned 99% of his body, and he was given a 1% chance to live through the night. My dad heard this story. It happened in St. Louis. He went to the hospital and gave the kid inspiration and was there and said, you're going to make it. Now, this isn't me telling the story. This is the kid who's now telling the story. His name's John O'Leary. He's become one of the great motivational speakers in the country. They had to amputate his fingers. He had to learn how to write again. Now he can play the piano, which is incredible. He's a 40-plus-year-old man. The reason I tell that story is because my dad didn't tell any of us, hey, I'm going to go make a difference in this kid's life, but then followed up. And part of this kid's rehab, learning how to write again, my dad would give him a ball, like an Ozzie Smith ball. He was a big Cardinal fan. And my dad said, in order to get another ball, I'm going to send you one every time you send a thank you letter to the person who sent you that ball. So he had to learn how to write and say, Dear Ozzie, thank you for sending me this ball, John O'Leary. And then, so John tells the story, and my dad never told us any of this to us. He had 60 balls in his room. That's how much my dad cared. This wasn't a one-off. This wasn't a, hey, I'm going to go to the hospital. Are there any cameras around? Can I get mic'd up before I go in the hospital and see this kid? He just did it because it made a difference in his life. And when I say his, both the kid and my dad. And then he was there for his graduation, and my dad gave him his Hall of Fame crystal baseball. And now this kid has taken it and is inspiring hundreds of thousands of people. Now there's a movie about it, and William H. Macy plays my dad in the movie. And so did he give me a lesson about this? He didn't sit me down and go, here's how you need to live your life. I just saw it. Mm-hmm. I saw the most generous man, a guy who grew up during the Depression, only could afford, they didn't have anything. Went to the dentist for the first time they pulled 12 teeth out of his mouth because he'd never been. He had not a dime to his name. He gets injured in World War II. He comes back. They had a thing called the GI Bill where they would send you to college if you were a vet. He went to Ohio State. He became a broadcaster. He did all that hard work. He's the guy who, allowed me to be a Nepotite and do all this. And I saw that, but I also saw a person that, because he grew up with nothing, every time he had $100 in his pocket, he'd give it to the elevator operator. He'd give it to the person working in the concession stand at Busch Stadium, or we'd pick up a mentally handicapped person on the street, on the highway. Like every weekend, we'd pick this guy up and drive him to the ball game. He'd drive him back. I just saw a person who got strength and energy from people around him, loved other human beings, and just wanted to do his part to make a difference. That's the lesson I learned from my dad. That's what I've tried to carry forward, and that's what I've shown my daughters, and hopefully my sons have taken note in the 7 years they've been on this earth.
Love that, yeah.
Joe, I feel like I could listen to this or talk to you this whole time with my eyes closed, because you are like legitimately like the soundtrack to our sports lives. Right, whether it's baseball, World Series, you did Super Bowls, right, Monday Night Football. What type of flag football dad are you? Because the first time you came downstairs and you were ranting a little bit about the Twins flag football games, you were a little upset.
I was.
Who is Joe Buck, the dad, on the sideline?
I'm starting to learn who Joe Buck is, the dad on the sideline, and I suck. I can't shut up. My boys play in this league where I would say they're not the most physically gifted kids. One of them's got a chance, but he can't run. He's like his dad, but he's got a great arm. But I'm over on the sideline. I'm channeling John Madden in those rules, like no scholarships are going to be handed out today. Sit in the back row of the bleachers and shut up and let the coaches coach. And I'm like, it's just the whole operation of the center quarterback exchange. It's all so slow, and I'm like, just move, run. You're 7. Just do something. Just go. And I can't. Then I'm like, shut up. Don't be that guy. Do not be that guy. I tried to coach my daughters in basketball, and both girls, about midway through the season, are like, Dad, you only yell at us. And I'm like, because you're the only ones I can yell at. If I yell at them, I'm going to get a letter for their dad's going to punch me in the face. So I'm going to teach lessons through you. Suck it up. That's how I'm doing this. But these boys, I've got one boy that's all athlete. All he does is throw a ball, want to play tackle football, want to hit baseballs, want to hit golf balls. And then a boy, my wife was a Broncos cheerleader. I've got a boy who thinks he's Michael Jackson Jr.
Can he dance?
Yes.
Well, that's
he's
all that
really good. Now, that's not me. I know you're looking at me like, oh, yeah, right.
No, that's Michelle for sure.
But I mean, like, forget my assessment of whether he's done this thing in St. Louis called Balloon Glow, where he's performed for, I don't know, 9,000 people in front of him when he was 5, and had the entire Smooth Criminal dance and outfit, did it with the guy DJ Reggie, who's become a dear family friend, and it was stunning to see a kid be that at ease in front of, at that age, at 5 years old. I was like, the hell, I'm more like the shrinking guy, and he just like something comes over him. So yes, he's good. There's no DNA from me in that kid at all.
Hey man, I don't know about y'all, but I'll leave a review. And reviews are important too. Like, I try to think about like what review I've ever seen that's made me buy something. You know, the one review is, you review some sneakers and you tell me they comfortable at my old age, I'm gonna buy them. I mean, it's the same thing with ShipStation, right? If I can leave a review for ShipStation, I'm gonna give them 5 stars.
I leave reviews too, bruh. And you know what? I'm gonna order my thing. I'm an e-commerce dude, but I wanted to get there. And that's what ShipStation does. It gets it there. If I order something that's nice, but it takes 15 years to get there, I'm not happy about it. You are getting a 1 star, even if it's the nicest shoes in the world.
I mean, it's not just about shipping labels. They help you with all your shipping needs.
What I love about it is what RC said. It's more than just shipping labels. It helps you automate shipping all in one place.
And if you're in the e-commerce business, they gotta be your go-to.
And man, it's awesome. There's no credit card needed, there's no contract needed, and you can cancel it anytime.
You know, I'm Frugal Freddy. I want to save over 90% off all the major shippers. That's what ShipStation will do for you.
We did it with the Pivot, and now you can do it with your customers too.
And you'll get rave reviews with cheaper, better, and faster shipping.
Upgrade to ShipStation today and get 60-day free trial at shipstation.com/pivot.
Get the best. That's shipstation.com/pivot.
Is it wild that you married and, you know, have 2 sons with somebody who said your face looked smug and arrogant?
Yes. Yeah, that happened. My wife, Michelle, who's just the best. I love her. Yeah, she works with you. She loves you, RC. And she kind of opened my eyes to getting remarried after being married for 19 years the first time around, having my daughters. It's probably the last thing I thought I was going to do again, and the first thing I'm glad I did do again. But yeah, she saw me on a national car rental commercial and thought I looked like a smug asshole. And now looking back on it, I think I did look like a smug asshole. And when I saw her, she was working for the NFL Network at the time and was standing against a wall, and I was walking out of Mile High Stadium, and I saw her, and I was like, I think I'm going to stalk that person. And I did. And I found out, so Rich Eisen, who's been a friend, I'm like, hey, what's this Michelle Beisner all about? He's like, well, I think she's got a boyfriend. I was like, I'm not worried about that. And then, which is very unlike me, because I do not have confidence in that category at all. Eventually, he kind of played matchmaker. And when she talked to Rich, he's like, he was playing a game. He's like, somebody in the booth wants your number. And she's like, okay, who is it? Let's play the game. Troy Aikman? He's like, no. And she went through everybody, like got to Al Michaels. And Rich is like, yeah, no, it's not him. She's like, well, please don't tell me it's Joe Buck. He's like, it is. He's a good friend of mine. Why would you say that? She said, you know what? I don't know. I just know that I saw him in a commercial and he looks like a smug asshole. And Rich was like, well, he's not. He's a great guy. You should, just talk to him. And so, the rest is now we've got 7-year-olds. To cut to the end of the story, we've got 7-year-olds. I wore her down. And
persistence.
And here, I mean, I just couldn't give up. And I did that.
What was the game, though, JB? Because you'll understand the reference. You outpunted your coverage.
I did.
Yes.
I did.
Your guys couldn't get down there.
You are literally, I'm glad. You get an award. I have it. I've been holding it for 12 years. You're the 1,000th person to tell me that. So you get the outpunt your coverage award for me.
But what was the game, though? How did you say, you want to skip through it? I want to see what Joe Buck's game was.
Okay, good. I'm glad you asked. So she was at a game then a couple of weeks later. We were in San Francisco. She was in the coffee line. And I told Aikman, I'm like, she's in the coffee line. She's in the coffee line. We have a little Keurig thing in our booth. I'm like, I think I'm going to go get coffee. So I kind of go to the coffee line and I was like, hey, how you doing? I'm Joe. She's like, yeah, I know. Because she knew all this. This had all gone on with Eisen. And I had not even talked to her at this point. And I talked to her for a minute and then I went away. And then we texted and she said, hey, I'm coming to St. Louis. I'm covering a Rams game. Do you know any good places for dinner in town? Listen to this. I said, I do. I know a lot of them, but I have to take you. So we ended up going to dinner. She insisted that she ride separately to dinner in case I was like either a psycho or awful, that she had a way out. So she's like, I'll just meet you there. I said, no, I'm going to pick you up. And I knew, I swear to God, I knew before the appetizers were put down that I was gonna marry her if she relented and said okay. She just was different, and it's the greatest decision I've made as an adult. That I can say.
Did you pop the question in your play-by-play voice?
I did. No. How awful would that be? Hi. Michelle, it's Joe. I have a question I'd like to ask you. Would you be willing to take my hand in marriage? And no, I flew her parents into St. Louis. I mean, rare is it that people ask somebody that they hope to marry that they don't know what the answer is. I think I knew.
It was pretty quick.
It was quick. It was under a year. I mean, I don't have much time left. I'm not beating around the bush. So I was like whatever I was, early 40s, and I've got this giant clock ticking over my head. I've got 7-year-old boys. All I do is math all day. I'm like, all right. So they're 7. When they're driving, how the hell old am I gonna be? And then I do the math. I'm like, 65. And then I'm like, when they go to college, I'm going to be damn near 70. And it just depresses the hell out of me. So I'm in the mode where, and you guys will get there, you're 40 and then you look up and you're like, oh my God, I'm 56 years old. How did that happen? And it flies by. And then you go, well, if it just flew from 40 to 56, now next time I look up, I'm going to be 70. God willing. It's just depressing. So I was not kicking the rock down the street. I had to make action happen.
See, usually it's their cue to kind of chime in and kind of tease me about my age.
I saw you pointing at him.
That's right there behind you, Joe. Don't act like he's a puppy.
I'm shocked that they hadn't chimed in.
I was so captivated by the story.
Me too, because I'm there. Because I do the math all the time.
How old are you?
I'm 49, Joe. My youngest is Cannon's 13. So I'm kind of going through my head doing math, like when I'm 60-something, they're going to be this age, or kind of look at them like I look at my wife's father in her age. And then I look at, can I live to get this long? And then I do the math with the average lifespan of NFL players. I just want to see my kids at 50.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I kind of do that math too, and then I get depressed.
Well, I know. My dad was an older dad. And then by the time I was, when he died, I was in my early 30s. I'd take that. Mm-hmm. I'd make that deal right now. Life is fragile, and I'm hopeful, we sit here and we start doing math, and that's when God laughs. Like, oh, really? You want to do some math? I got some math for you. How about 10 minutes? I get hit by lightning walking out here to go back to my room after we do this podcast.
Joe, that's crazy. When you were talking about the proposal, if you did it in your voice though, in your work voice, you also had to say, "I'm here with Hall of Famer Troy Aikman."
Exactly. Yeah, he was not there.
Yeah,
that would be. I'm like, she's like, "Why is Troy here?" I'm like, "Hold on a second."
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the broadcast booth. Joe Buck, along with the Hall of Famer Troy Aikman. Michelle, will you marry me? Like, yeah. That would have gotten a no. I guarantee you that would have been like, you're not well. You need to just go away, old man.
You probably aren't well though. You've been doing this way too long.
I have.
To be well. You mentioned lightning striking. You were actually in the booth on the night it felt like lightning struck with Demar Hamlin.
Yeah.
That is not something that even experience can teach you to be ready for. How were you able to communicate through what you were seeing?
It was something I'd never seen. It's something I never want to see again. I mean, thank God we know the end of the story, which is miraculously he comes back and he's playing football again. I don't think anybody would have taken that bet when that was all going on. I was really that was our first year at ESPN, and we were all involved in that. And I think the best thing we all did was not speculate and kind of took our time. And maybe the best thing was we didn't have any information. I didn't have anything. I didn't know any more than what my eyes were telling me. And at the time, our director at the time, Jimmy Platt, did a brilliant thing. That's all going on in the field, and we have that camera that hovers over the field. He took everything back. It would have been like an invasion of privacy almost in this life and death moment for Demar Hamlin. You got a camera hovering over this situation, like that's not the time for that. Like, have some respect and go back. And so all I could do was watch from the booth, and it's terrible to think this, but I think we're all conditioned to, Demar took the hit, got up, and then went down. And I think we're all kind of conditioning on, man, that's just a terrible concussion. That's some hit to the head. I didn't see the hit, and we all, it was right to the chest at the exact wrong moment. But I was just thinking, okay, well, this is just an awful concussion. And then we come back, they're still working on him, and we take another break. And at that point, then it became like a beehive of activity. And I see them resuscitating him, and I'm thinking, are my eyes really seeing that? Like, are they giving him CPR right now? And we also know, that moment when Josh Allen turned around and is when they cut a hole in his chest for a trach tube to go in there so that he got air and all. I mean, we didn't know any of that. So I'm just continually trying to recap what we've seen and just be respectful that, we're just kind of witnessing it from a distance, and there's nothing I can say that's going to be anything other than we're hopeful that, whatever they're doing down there to Demar Hamlin, first of all, identify who it is. Secondly, give a little bit of where he's been in the league, and then just hope and pray that the guy is okay. And thank God. I consider that medical crew down there like landing a plane on the Hudson. They saved his life twice. I know there's a documentary coming out about it. We now see, you guys are down there on the field before games. They do that now. It's unnerving because they put a dummy down there and they start working on it. And if you're not really paying attention, you're like, oh my God, what happened down on the field? But they practice the choreography of that. I think what happened that night was a miracle. And then you see what Demar did with that platform, raising money and, he's such a wonderful guy. I've gotten a chance to meet him a couple times and get to know him. And you're just like, it happened to a special person that took this and ran with it. So thank God.
Did you take it with you though, Joe?
I did.
Were you able to leave it in the stadium?
No, and I didn't know that I took it with me. It bothered me, obviously, because it was a weird position to be in to kind of talk through what was happening. But then when he came to our upfronts the next year for ABC, I saw him backstage, and I was emotional. Like I didn't expect to react that way. I just said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I just wanted to kind of touch him and be like, "Man," and he was aware that, we were the ones on TV talking about that. Never want to be in that position again. I hope I'm not. And I was really proud of, how we all just kind of laid low and let it unfold, and then, whatever the story is, we follow. And, again, the ending of the story is phenomenal.
Is a part of your job holding back emotions?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's times where you have to. I mean, I'm not emotional as a fan would be, but there are times where you have to get up, and when the crowd goes crazy, you've got to get your voice up over that. And so then that leads, I think, to what becomes exciting calls. Like people go, "What's your favorite call in football?" The answer is easy. It's Stephon Diggs on the sideline for the Minnesota Miracle. And that was just breathtaking because it was right in front of us. I could paint a picture of it if I could paint. It was right there, right in front of the booth. And we're all conditioned to, at that moment, Diggs, you think, is going to make the catch on the pass from Keenan and just hop out of bounds and give them a shot at a game-winning field goal. How brilliant is he? He makes the catch, he spins around, nobody's there, and he takes off and scores a touchdown. It was like, and it was almost like, I was expecting him to catch, pop out of bounds. Now it's on the kicker. He caught it, turned around, and that's just raw emotion of going, Diggs, sideline, touchdown, Vikings win, unbelievable, whatever I said. But the place was shaking. It was so great. And those moments, it's like, A, don't screw it up, but B, if you're not emotional in that moment, then there's something wrong, because that's just the beauty of sport. And I have a great respect for that. Some people go, "Oh, this guy," one of the big criticisms of me is, "Oh, he doesn't get emotional enough." A lot of times I'm just laying out because the crowd is so good, the action is so good. What am I going to say that's going to make it any better? I think it's better to let it just be raw out there, and if you're at home, you get to hear it more instead of the announcer just stroking his own ego by talking over all of that. That's just the way I've always tried to do it. I don't always achieve that, but I think that's the way to do TV. If I'm doing radio, different deal. You gotta describe everything.
Yeah.
You got to paint the picture. TV, the picture's there. You got to accent it. You got to put the Bob Ross happy little trees on top of the thing.
As long as you don't breathe like that.
No,
Bob Ross like,
yeah.
right here's the. I was like,
Yeah.
golly.
His mic might have been a little too close to.
When you see Troy, right? One,
I can't wait to hear the end of this question.
he's a bigger man than you think sometimes.
Yeah.
Massive hands, right? Like just a big old dude.
Yeah.
And now he looks like all he eats is like boiled chicken breast and asparagus all the time because
Yes.
he's shredded.
Yes.
He's also, Troy's not warm.
He's intense.
Yeah, like he's like always on.
Yeah.
How do you have fun?
It's such a good question, Ryan, because this is year 24. And I'm the one guy that can pop that. I'm the one guy that can go, "Hey, let's have some fun." And it's up to me to make him laugh. It is my job when we get in the booth to lighten the mood. And he knows that, by the way. This is not me talking out of school. He knows that if I get him to laugh, I've done my job and it makes us sound better. He's got a great laugh, and he's got a really good sense of humor, but you got to get there. And you're right in that he's very intense, but if he's getting too intense, like before we go on the on camera that nobody pays any attention to at the beginning of games, and we spend so much time worrying and thinking about, if I feel like he's being tense, I'll just go, oh, hey, and he'll look and I'll go. And it gets him like lightened up.
Right.
Or I'll sing something. Or I just joke, and it's got to drive him nuts. Because I'm sure there are many times he's like, well, this guy just shut up. But all the while, I'm doing it to get him to just have some fun and realize that we're calling a game for the next couple hours, 3 hours. And if we can't have fun doing this, then we stink.
Did y'all get to laugh at 28-3?
I'm really happy that we didn't give up on that. You're talking about the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl, yeah.
We stayed in it, and I think the reason we stayed in it was because of Brady. Now, if you roll the tape backward, when Seattle played Denver, we were doing that Super Bowl, and that thing felt like it was over before it started. You know, my wife is a big Denver person, and we had met with the Seahawks, and we met, you know, with our production meetings, we met with the Broncos. And the Broncos meetings were great, and Peyton was awesome, like he always is, and was to answer questions using our first names, and yeah, Joe, you know, and very thoughtful and whatever. When we went and met with the Seahawks, they were at the Giants facility. We met with the Legion of Boom as a group. Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, that whole group. And we walked out of that production meeting, and I went back to the hotel, and Michelle was like, well, how was it? I said, your team's got no chance. Earl Thomas looked like he was going to run through a wall, and this was on Thursday. And I was like, they got no chance. And then the first snap goes over Peyton Manning's head, and off we go. And the game was off. By halftime, it was a blowout. Yeah. Troy and I are in the back of the booth, and I don't know who was performing at halftime, Lady Gaga or somebody. We're not even watching it. We're like, there's 100 million people watching this thing. How is this going to get better? What are we going to do? And then Troy was like, it's Peyton Manning. It's Peyton Manning. If there's any quarterback that can come back from this, they'll find a way. They'll find a way to make this a game. And they kick off, the second half kickoff. Percy Harvin runs it back for a touchdown. Yeah. And we both like threw our pens down on the table, like, Jesus Christ, like this, they're not coming back. And then the rating was still insane and whatever. Then you get to 28-3, and it was the same thing. I think we didn't give up on that game because of Brady. And then everything had to be perfect for them to come back and tie that game. 2-point conversions, getting the ball back, the Falcons, you know, that crazy Julio Jones catch, and then they go holding, sack, they're out of field goal range. I mean, it was almost to the point where they could have taken a knee after the Julio Jones catch, kick a field goal, and there's just no chance, there's no time for New England to come back. But backward they went, punt, touchdown, you know, on and on and on. So you can never give up on a game. And this league, you guys know, all these games end up tight. You're going to get the blowout every once in a while, but if you give up on it, you know, you're not doing the audience any favors. And you never complain about games. I mean, it's an NFL game, for God's sake. Whatever the matchup is, we're so lucky to get to call it.
Joe, you said something that kind of stood out there. You mentioned to your wife about her team possibly going to take the L, right? And from a production meeting, and that's just an opinion. What's your take on Tom Brady? You know, being able to go into those production meetings, being as great as he is, knowing the game as well as he knows it, then he's able to go into the booth, but then he's able to kind of change hats and go and be an owner, and then go into the booth and kind of watch the game and all that stuff. What's your thoughts on
that?
His
seemed
position?
A little too public to me, the headset with the Raiders. But I think the production meeting stuff is much ado about nothing. I think for the most part, I mean, they're helpful to us. I think where they help us, and I'll answer the question, I think where they help us is the sports fan and the football fan is so educated now, even more so than when I started in this job because of your phone. I mean, everybody knows everything. You know, we used to all watch SportsCenter to get the highlights, and oh my God, it's when are they going to do the Cardinal highlights? Now it's on your phone in 5 seconds after it happens. And so now what are you bringing new to the broadcast? And a lot of times it's, hey, we talked to Tom Brady, and here's what he had to say. Hey, we talked to Tom Coughlin, and here's what he. So that's kind of the new information we can bring, and I think that's good sprinkled into a broadcast. So I think Tom Brady, as a broadcaster, if this is just how I think, if I'm Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady wasn't in the production meeting, but Tom Brady called me, I'd probably talk to Tom Brady. Yeah. So if he's not in the production meeting and he wants to get the information, and I assume, first of all, Kevin Burkhardt and Richie Zion, some of those guys are sharing all their notes with him. Secondly, if he wants to talk to the quarterback or the head coach or whatever, who's not taking a call from Tom Brady?
Right.
So I think it was more perception, the perception of it than reality.
It was the visibility of that was
different.
It was the visual.
Yeah, it was the visual. And he wants to be involved. My God, the last person I'm telling what to do is Tom Brady. But yeah, I thought the visibility, and I know they weren't happy that got out, but he's in a booth with a headset on. I mean, and we're all at least smart enough to know that there's cameras everywhere and they're going to find you. So cameras found him, and then it became a big thing. And then just like everything else in the world, it goes away 5 seconds later and everybody moves on. The whole inside information, I don't know what he's going to get that's going to help him as an executive for the Raiders, but out of a production meeting. But maybe if other owners don't like it, then I guess that's their prerogative too.
Have you had any bad games, like athletes who have bad games, where you look back and was like, I was terrible?
My mom is still my best critic and most honest. I think any good critic would have to be honest. And there have been times where I've kind of been running in October, and then I show up at a football game or I show up back at a baseball game. This is in a lifetime ago. And I'll call home afterward, and my mom's like, you sounded tired. You sounded like you were worn out. And then I get mad at my mom for being honest. Yeah. And then I think about it, and I'm like, she was right. I am tired, and I can't let that come through on the broadcast. The funny thing is, if the game's good, the perception is you had a good broadcast. And there have been many times where the game's been really good. I'm like, I really wasn't that great. It was like, oh man, that was awesome. The rating was through the roof. Well, okay. I'm very hard on myself. And so I know when I've had a good game, when I've had a bad game. I think when I'm anticipating, if you really want the answer, if I'm anticipating action and I can see things unfolding, and I can watch a guy go down the field and I can see that he's open, instead of being reactionary, I can anticipate and I can say, whoever it is, DeAndre Hopkins, because I can see his big body going down the field. And I don't care what his number is. Sometimes I can't see the number, but I can see the body. And I know that of their receivers, he's the biggest guy. And I can almost identify him off the snap, and I'm following him, and I know the quarterback's looking for him, and I can almost say his name before the quarterback lets the ball go, instead of going, downfield, the pass is caught, and the catch is inside the 40. That's me stalling to go, DeAndre Hopkins with a great catch. When I can see him and I can go, Hopkins over the middle, caught at the 40, down inside the 35, and, first down, Texans or whoever he's playing for at the time, those are the good calls to me when I'm ahead of it. If I'm behind it, and all day I'm behind it because I'm not identifying well, then I think I had a bad game. I don't know that the average person would hear that. I think there's stall tactics that I can hear other announcers do, and I have them myself, to go, wait, who is that? Who is that? Who is that? Who is that? Okay, that's Smith inside the 5, and it's first and goal. You can rearrange the furniture. You can rearrange the order of all that stuff. You can go, caught down inside the 5, and that'll set up first and goal for the Texans as a great catch was made by Hopkins. Or you can go, caught by Hopkins down inside the 5, 1st and goal. Which one sounds better? That one, because I was ahead of it.
Honestly, they both sound really good to me. But
I know, but
the way you. But I want, we talked about your father a lot, and I think this happens when one of the parents either does the job that we do or they're the famous parent. But your mom also performed too.
Yeah.
And I thought about it when you were talking about your son, because you're saying you don't know how he was able to be so present in front of 9,000 people, but he has 2 parents that are basically performers, as did you. Does it bother you so much when your mom says you sound tired because she actually knows?
Yes. She was a performer. She was on Broadway. She was a singer, dancer, and somebody that, was back in St. Louis performing at the Mutiny when my dad met her. Again, that's the second podcast. But yeah, it bothers me because she's got the best ear, and she's the one actually listening. Even my dad. I did my first World Series in '96, and I called home, and I was 27. It was in the Bronx, Yankees, Braves, and I was a little bit out of my depth, and I didn't know that I could handle that kind of a stage. I'm looking at the camera, and the whole time they're like, give a recap of the World Series and the postseason and Joe Torre's first year as a Yankees manager. That was Jeter's rookie year. It was crazy that we kind of connected at Fox at the same time the Yankees took off again. Anyway, they're like, look at the camera and do a recap. And the whole time I'm picturing my dad while I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking at the camera. I get through it. I thought it was really good considering the stakes and that I didn't kind of fumble around, and I did it. And I picked up the phone right after we got off the air, and my dad answered, and I said, well, what'd you think? And he goes, what'd you think? What'd I think of what? And I said, well, what'd you think of the game? He goes, what time's it start? And I said, shut up. I said, what'd you think? He goes, it was great, Buck. It was great. And then he handed the phone to my mom, and then she kind of gave me her 2 cents. And the next day I called home. I was flying back to St. Louis from New York, and I was like, what was up with Dad? Like, come on. And she said he was crying so hard he couldn't talk. He was so proud, and he was crying so hard that all he could choke out was, it was great. It was great. And then he handed me the phone, and meaning my mom saying that. And that, my mom has always been the one to give me the real critique. I think that one of the great gifts my dad gave me was he wasn't the guy going, yeah, that was good, but in the 7th inning when Andy Pettit threw a curveball for a strike, you called it this way. This is how I would have done it. He just was not that guy. So I was really lucky, and I think it's the biggest thing I had was that I didn't have a dad that was a helicopter parent who was just saying, here's how you need to do it. Here's how I do it. I think the biggest thing my dad gave me was room. 2 things. He let me inside the room when I was a little kid, so I always knew I was invited in and involved, and I was around it. This kind of stuff. If there were podcasts back then, there weren't, but he would do interviews on the telephone. And I knew when his voice got into the, well, we're here with Ozzie Smith, and Ozzie, tell me, I knew as a kid, even when I was 5, if I wanted to be inside that room and he was on the phone doing an interview with somebody, I had to sit over there and shut up. So I knew I was invited in, and I had to act the right way. And then he gave me room to find my own way. Nobody was leading him through it, going, hey, Jack, here's how you have to broadcast baseball. So he didn't do that for me, even though we were broadcast partners for, 10 years, and we were on the radio together. And at the beginning of it, I was like, this is weird. I'm in my early 20s, and my dad is a Hall of Fame announcer sitting next to me. I was like, what do I call you on the air? He's like, don't worry about it. And eventually I was like, I started by thinking it was weird, and then by the end of it, I was having fun with it. So the beginning, instead of going, hey, Jack, that was his name, I was like, or hey, Dad, what do you think of, I just would go, hey, what do you think of, whatever, the Cardinals bullpen tonight? And then by the end, when he was really at his end and at his sickest, and he went through a lot of stuff health-wise, I just call him Daddy Be like, Daddy, what do you, like, I like didn't even care anymore. Like, I would just joke around, and it was awesome. I'm so glad I took advantage of that time we had together. I have 7 brothers and sisters. I got the time with my dad, and that's because I was on the team bus with him. I was on the charters. He took me with him. I was in every National League city before I was 12 years old. And we'd go to Vegas. He was a man's man, like whatever that means in today's world, I don't know. If that's probably politically incorrect. But he was a guy that I think because he felt like he was on borrowed time all the time, he had money in his pocket, he was gonna go, the Cardinals would be in LA. We'd have a charter to fly back to St. Louis. He and I was a little boy, we'd get on a flight to Vegas. And he'd roll craps all night. He'd give me $20. I'd go play Donkey Kong in the arcade. I'd let myself back into the room. I'd order room service. I'd watch a movie on the TV. He'd be gone all night. He'd come in at 6 a.m, and he'd either plop down a big wad of hundreds, or he'd go, well, we worked this week for free, don't tell your mother. And then we'd fly home. And that was, talk about like a great way to grow up. Yeah. And just seeing life on the road and being a little boy walking past the hotel bar and being like, wow, that doesn't look like that player's wife that he's talking to. He's like, my dad would be like, put your head down, Buck, keep walking. And so I learned, I was indoctrinated into all this stuff when I was a little kid. Not saying it was, I am saying it was a great way to grow up.
Every guest gets this question.
Uh-oh.
It's what's your biggest pivot in life? That's that one moment you can look back on and say, because this happened to me or for me, I am the reason I am who I am today.
Okay, what jumps to mind is in 2011, after we did Super Bowl 45 in Dallas, I went to get my 8th hair transplant surgery. And I had had the first 7 under local anesthetic, which, let me tell you, if you want pain, I've got something for you. Because they numb the back of your head, they numb the front of your head with Novocaine shots, and then they cut a strip out of the back of your hair, your head, your scalp, and they pluck the hairs out and then put them in the front of your head.
Wow.
First 7 of them. And I was just, every time that needle going, I'd just be like, ugh. And eventually I get done with it, and I'm gonna do another one with his doctor in St. Louis, and he goes, you know, I know you don't like this process. You can do this under general anesthetic. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, it's gonna cost you another $2,000. I'm like, how about $10,000? I don't wanna sit there and I don't care. Because great, so they put me under, they put a tube down my throat, because anytime you go under, you sign the waivers, they put the waivers in front of you, you're like, yeah, blah, 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 and you don't even read the thing. Well, what can happen is, and it could have been for hair transplants, could have been for a new knee, it could have been for, when they put a thing down your throat, it can damage the nerves that help your vocal cords fire. And it did. And I came out and I sounded like this. And I was like, is this gonna go away? He's like, the doctor's like, yeah, don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Maybe another day, it's just the anesthetic wearing off. And then the next day I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I'm a sports announcer. And I was going through a divorce. And I had kids that were, you know, going through a divorce at the same time. And I was worried about them. And I'm worried about all the people that I'm trying to support in my family. And all of a sudden, I sound like this. And I go to a doctor and they're like, I talked, and he goes, the doctor says, I'll examine you, but I know exactly what it is. He goes, yeah, you have a paralyzed vocal cord. So my vocal cord, my left one, was laying there like this. When you talk, your vocal cords touch, and that's what makes your sound. And I was like this. And I couldn't keep my air. I couldn't make any loud sound. And I thought my career was over. Then I saw a specialist in Boston, and he said, you know, normally after 3 months, that's the outside. What you have is what you have, and that'll be your voice for the rest of your life. But we can put a prosthetic in there and prop your vocal cord up. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Wow.
So 3 months come, I don't sound any better. And he's injecting me, going down my throat and injecting my vocal cord with this stuff called Restylane. It's like Botox that makes it a little fatter so that they can possibly touch better, but I still sounded like that. And I continued to broadcast that entire year. This was 2011. And I sounded like I was dying. And by the end of the season, the baseball season, our boss at Fox was like, do you think you can call the World Series? I'm like, I know I don't sound that much better, but I feel like it's getting better. And I could feel it, but I was kind of lying. And to do my job and no longer worry about what I was going to say, but to worry about how it was going to sound was frightening. And I still kept working. And I did everything I could to try to get it right. And by that World Series, which was, 8 months after the fact, it started to come back a little bit. And I could feel it. And I get through the World Series, and now it's getting a little bit stronger. And I make this call that was a knockoff of my dad's call. David Freese hits a home run, and I'm like, we'll see you tomorrow night. And I got through it. And my pivot was, I determined after that, and then my voice got stronger, that I was not going to worry about critics anymore. I was not going to worry about really anything professionally. I was going to have fun. I was going to be loud. I was going to emote. I was going to be a different broadcaster when I came back on the other side of that thing. And everybody says, like that little boy I talked about that got burned at the beginning. He'd been asked by people, if you could go back and put that fire out before it burned you, would you? And his answer initially was, yeah, of course. And then the more he thought about it, his answer became, no, I wouldn't. I got through to the other side of this thing. My thing doesn't compare to that. Right. But I plowed through it. I went to work like my dad would have wanted me to. I didn't say I was too sick to work or I couldn't do it. And I got better and better and better. And when I came back, I pivoted to having more fun and letting myself more out than I was before.
Man, I love that. Also, too, I did read that you are addicted to...
Yeah, which was a joke. It was a joke. I wrote it in a book. I don't know if you know this, Ryan, but people don't seem to get jokes like when it's written or online or social media or whatever. So yeah, I'm like, the addiction to it came after what I said, which was, it's the most painful thing you could ever think to do. Nobody could be addicted to that. But I think the joke was, I've got a huge head, I have really thin hair. If I'm gonna fill this area up with hair, it's gonna take a lot. So I'm gonna have to go through the pain for the gain. And the funniest thing was when my voice was out, and this was in my book, I was at this event with Matthew McConaughey, and I sounded still like this. And he's like, what's wrong with your voice there, buckaroo? And I said, well, and I may have been fishing for information with McConaughey. I'm like, I had a hair transplant. And I told this ridiculously long story again. And he takes a minute afterward and he goes, so what you're saying is you fixed your video, but you fucked up your audio. I was like, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying, Matthew. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Joe, this was amazing, man. It was like watching a movie, bro. I just really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No, that
Love
was
being
awesome.
with you guys. Thank you.
He said buckaroo.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Also, too, he makes everything sound cool.
I know.
Yeah, like everything.
I mean, like
everything he says sounds cool.
a Lincoln commercial.
Yeah.
What is is it the Wolf of Wall Street?
Yeah.
The movie that?
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah. I can hear him saying the
Oh, yeah.
buckaroo
Yeah.
thing and that.
Exactly.
well, he just did that whole little tour though, and he said like even when he was like, all right, he's like all of that was improv.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's like it just happens.
Hold up, limitless. Take a stomach, got pin in it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling got me up. On the mission got me up. Knowing me, I got the key. On the vision I can trust. Limitless. Take a stomach, got pin in it. I fought the head to witness it. Got my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling got me up. On the mission got me up.
Is there? Well, now you tell me. Jesus Christ. I thought this was to pee in.
Drink it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sorry, I thought you heard me when I came.
That's all he needs.